Good morning, Dave. How you doing?
All right. Good morning, Nick. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Hunsinger, and welcome to this Wednesday, April 9th edition of Keystroke Live. I am going to be talking about reports today, and we have designated April as Reports Month. So I'm going to kind of give an overview of reports. Next week, Mike Tabor will talk about using report filters. We're going to follow that with Lynn and doing sales reports, which are the sales menus, so sales tax, customer activity, receivables, those kind of reports. And then the last day of April will be Jay Restuccia with the inventory reports, which are the inventory database that's value, price list, inventory sales, and purchase analysis reports that are kind of the favorite report of most people, and also the exceptions and history reports in there. So we're trying to get a little more in depth on reports and topics. That's kind of our theme so far this year, as we've gone through all the search functions, and now we're doing reports. So as you know, same day, same time, same login information with Keystroke Live. And just some general things about reports. We have done sessions on queues and report editing, but never one generally about reports. So that's why we're doing this. And remember, with advanced, there's a few more things in reports that I'll point out, like company logo and the set date ranges. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone, and then I will unmute at the end for questions. Without further ado, I will move into Keystroke here, and I am just going to select Reports off of my navigation menu. If you are using queues, and you can actually run, like these are just report queues set to run from these buttons, so you can set frequently run reports in a queue, and then the button will trigger that queue to run, and so you can have it filters or groupings all preset up, ready to go. So here is the report manager. Oh, and I forgot to do my favorite thing that I will go ahead and do. I'm going to go into the configuration manager here and do setting and appearance and change my menu font size to extra large. Makes it easier for everyone to see there in the webinar land. And if you see reports, there are divided into menus: sales, database, purchase, inventory, matrix, tables, and then reports, queues, preset things. An important thing to remember about the sales reports are invoice information that is kind of the invoice summary. It would be what's in the header or what's on the complete sales screen. If you're looking at sales tax, payments, customers, that's all sales information. Inventory sales analysis specifically, is the body information on an invoice. So if you want to know prices paid, line items, then that's inventory sales analysis. So you can almost, a guide to getting around the sales manager if you're looking at an invoice. If you're looking for the header or the complete sale information, you'll find that on the sales menu. If you're looking for the line item information, you'll find that under inventory sales analysis. The database menu are lists of customers, list of department, that kind of information. Matrix is just information on matrix items versus non-matrix items that you would find just under inventory. And then tables I always like pointing out, because you'll find if you call in tech support and you're having trouble with a price table or a tax table, we'll often say, hey, run this report to a file and email it, or print it out and fax it to me, because that can tell us a lot about how your tables are set up. The other thing with these tables reports is once you get Keystroke all set up, you can run a report for payment types, price tables, tax tables, payment formulas, print buttons, put it in a file, and if something ever is not right or off, you can always pull that report out, run it again, and see what's different so that you can get back to where you started from. So this is often good. Once you've got everything set up and working, you can run these tables reports and then just file them away, and if you ever need to pull them out for reference, hey, how was this set up? We often see somebody messed with the payment types. They changed numbers or whatever. This gives you something to go back to say, oh yeah, something did change. We can get back there. I am going to go back to sales and just select transaction, the first one off the list, to give you kind of a feel for the report manager and how generating reports works. First thing you'll see is there is this saved settings box. And this is a really good thing to use because what you can do is the sales transaction reports, you can run reports on invoices and layaways and orders. Well, rather than having to go in to the actual sales report screen that's right here and say, hey, I'm going to change report on from sales invoice to layaway, what I can do here is, and I'm not going to have anything because I didn't have any layaways today, but I can come back here and say I want to add a new setting. I'm going to call it layaway. And then I want report on layaway. I want detail. If there's no layaways, I don't want it to print anything. And I want to run it to the screen, or I could send it to a specific printer if I wanted to. I'll just select screen. And so now, and I don't have any for today, but now I've got this layaway in my saved settings. So rather than having to go change it every time you run a report, you can preset it. This can be a long list of options. You don't want it too long. You see there are settings and then shared settings. When I go into add new settings, if I change it to register 0, it will be shared amongst all registers, so anybody will be able to run that report. If I also make it -14, what that negative indicates is that clerk number 14 can run this report. So the other thing I'm able to do is set up a report or a queue that I can say, okay, I don't want them to go run any sales report, but I want this particular clerk to be able to go in and look at what layaways are outstanding. So you can set this up so, and I could call this something like, Jim's layaway report. And so when he comes in on his register, he can see, oh, there's Jim's layaway report, and go ahead and run it and be ready to go. So there's his report, and I'll just hit escape to get out of there so I don't run a report for nothing again. So that is the saved settings. Just going to select last use. So now when you run any report, there's lots of choices here that will greatly change the length of the report and the way the report looks. When you're looking at sales, you typically have this report on that are all your different transaction types: invoices, layaways, orders, quotes. Then most reports anywhere will have a detailed or a summary fashion. When you're running it for sales transactions, if it's detailed, it's going to give you the invoice number and then all the line item information. Next invoice number, all the line item information. So if I go ahead and run this report to the screen, say from the beginning of 2012, just so I know I get some transactions. Oh, I got all kinds of transactions. But you see, I get invoice number 1 with envelopes, invoice number 2 with felt tip pen, invoice number 3 with drinks and cigarettes. If I change this just from I'm going to go select last use again, just change it from detailed to summary. My 8-page report is going to be 1 page, and I just see invoice 1 total, invoice 2 total. So that's a quick, easy example of detailed and summary that will change the way it looks. You know, this just gives you a snapshot of each invoice. The detailed gives you the detail of all the invoices. A little insight into what we do here at Tech Support is you call up and say, well, how do I get this report? We'll stall you and sit here and just run different reports and turn detail on and off and until we see it. So kind of trying to teach you a little bit to, you got to move around, experiment, and you often find what you're looking for. Now, also on here, there's filters for transactions, so I can say, you know, transaction number greater than 1, less than 5, or I can say also only show me transactions that have Budweiser beer or envelopes on them. So I can filter the transaction information, customer, invoice number, date, or I can filter on the line item information, item, department, that kind of thing. You'll often see this don't print if empty and print comments. Sometimes you do want to know if you didn't sell an item, and sometimes, hey, if I didn't sell it, I don't want to see it. But remember, that can be important information either way, that sometimes people want to see, hey, I don't have any in stock of that item, or I didn't sell any of that item. And sometimes they say, hey, I only want to see items that I actually sold. Then on all reports at the bottom here, you have a form and a print to. The form is the style of what prints out. So we've got standard forms. You can, as a dealer, you can edit forms. They are discrete files that have a name, report, sales, transaction. It's not super difficult. That is, just so you know, the RST. R is report. ST is sales transactions. So SX, if I look at sales tax, you see the form names are going to be RSX, and then that 4th digit, the 1, that tells it it's our SBS report, or the 000. So when you create a new report, you kind of give it a little bit of a different number so that it knows that, hey, that's not a standard report. When you upgrade or reinstall Keystroke, it doesn't get overwritten. So you have that. So remember, that's just report, and then the letters from the pull-down menu. So if I hit escape to get out of here, so SP would be profit, but SY would be payments. Those are all in a subdirectory, so you'll have your Keystroke program directory, and below that there's a reports subdirectory where you just, if you do a custom file, you just copy it into that reports subdirectory and you're ready to go. You'll see it on these lists. So that is form, and they have different styles. Remember, you can hit F3 here, pulls up the edit report form. It's not a WYSIWYG format, but it does work well, and then you can do a test to see what it looks like. This one has average dollars per transaction, which a lot of retail gurus like saying, hey, you should always keep track of that. And there's edit the form. Remember, you have to make it like 121, and then I can call it Dave's report, save it, and so now you see Dave's report with a different number in there. And it just, all it did, it took that old file and copied it to that new name with whatever changes I made. And then you can always print to screen, printer, or file. The screen is what I use 90% of the time, and probably what most people do. When you do print a report to the screen like this one, it comes up, you do have the option to print, and that will just bring up your, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but your available Windows printers. So that makes it work pretty easy. The format that it prints to the screen is either going to be whatever you have designated as the #1 printer, or if I do print to printer, whatever printer I have selected here, that's what's going to format it for. Well, why is that important? Well, if you have a receipt printer selected here, it's going to try to format it into 40 columns. So, or sometimes it looks a little funny because you got a laser printer and an inkjet printer and the margins might be different. But remember, you can just come in here, print to printer, and say, oh yeah, I want my Windows default printer, and I'll be good to go. So the printer will just send it directly to a printer, and then if I print to file, it asks for a file name. By default, that's typically export.txt, and then you can make it in Excel file, you can make it quote comma delimited, you can create different kinds of files to then be copied somewhere or opened up or manipulated. And if you do, say, if I do quote comma, it's going to ask me if I want to include heading fields. Some people want them, some people don't. If you're automatically manipulating a file, you typically don't want the headings in there. If you're opening it up, it might be handy to have those in there. So, as I said, that these are some typical settings. If I look at a different report, just say, let's look at the database customer report, you still see at the bottom here is this form and print to. That's pretty much consistent throughout every report. There's always a filter. On the customer database report, the filter is going to be about customers. On the invoice report, it's going to be about invoices. On the inventory report, it's going to be based on inventory items. So the filter is always there, but where it's pulling the list of fields you can filter on could be different from report to report. This report, like a lot, have a range. Now, this range is based on however you are sorting. So I'm sorting by name. So if I say, oh, well, I want customer number 1 to customer number 15, I'm going to get Mr. 1 to Mr. 15. So I'm probably going to get nothing. I run the report, I get nothing. But if I go back here and change my sort by to number, now I'm going to get number 1 to number 15. So when I run this report, you see I got customer number 1 to customer number 15. And it is something, as in the tech support world, we hear, hey, I'm not getting anything. Hey, this is weird. That's weird. It's often because something is wrong in that range. If you just delete them out of there, it says first to last, and I think we fixed that. So if you type in correctly, sometimes people had first and last typed in there. So now you'll get, well, if I'm doing by number, I won't get anything. If I go by name, I'll get Mr. F to Mr. L. Oh, I think that's what we fixed, is it just ignores it if you type in first to last now. So if you see that first to last, it's just nothing. And remember that range is tied back to the sort. This report also has, you can choose print all or individual. When you select individual, it pops up a list of your customers, and you can say, oh, well, I want Trey, and I want Barney's Liquor Store, and I want the Health Nut. And then I can hit escape, and my report ends. So there's that print all, print individual. Receivables report might have a print balance due, so there can be different things there. And again, I'm kind of giving the overview, giving you what's on the individual report menus. If I go over, say, here to tables and security levels, there's fewer choices. You still have the form and the print to, and then I have a group by. So here I can say group by none, so I just get a list of all my security levels, or I can do it by group. So it's got transaction manager, database manager, and that makes it easier to look at. So this, just kind of an example, this security level report, this is, I think Lynn came up with this, is she'll often, we're trying to figure out, hey, what security level do you use to control that? Well, I can run the security level report to a file and then search for edit and inventory, and it'll find all the security levels that have the word edit and inventory in it, and then you can say, oh yeah, it's right here, this is the one to change. So it's just an easy way of searching through the security levels. If I look at inventory sales analysis that Jay in a couple weeks will cover in detail, here you have a first grouping and a second grouping. So if I come in to the first grouping and group by customer, wow, I get a whole big list of how that's doing. Do I want it detailed or summary? If I do it detailed, I get customer number 1, Trey, and then every single item he's purchased. If I do it summary, I just get one line for Trey. So again, how you do these will change the length of the report and all. So, you know, if I do this summary, I'm just going to get a list, and remember, I probably want to turn on the don't print if empty. I can separate with page breaks if I want each customer on a separate page, which I don't here. So now I'm going to get a list of just all my customers that bought something and how much they bought, just one line. So if I run this report real quick from 2012, and zoom in a little bit so you can see maybe, it's just giving me each customer how much they purchased, what the cost, profit, and total was. So it's just a quick and easy report. Now, as soon as I change that first grouping and say detailed, now when I run the same report, you see I'm getting a long report. I think I didn't mark the don't print items I didn't sold, so it's giving me every single item for each customer. Same report, same totals, except this one's I'm going to get hundreds of pages about. So one little setting there can really change what that report looks like. If you see a couple of things, and what's another report I can look at, I'll go, let's do sales time of day report. I always like this one. When I click OK here, in Keystroke Advanced POS, you've got these date options. So I can say, oh, I want last year, just to quickly choose last year. I use this month, last month quite a bit. And then when I actually run the report, you see there's this logo in the upper left corner. It's pulling that out of the configuration manager where you've specified the company logo. So if you want to change that or make that different or whatever, that's specified in the configuration manager. I could talk all day about reports, but I you know, like to keep these about a half hour, and we are going to follow up with talking about report filters next week, and then the week after the sales reports, which are like sales tax, receivables is a big one there, and then the last week of April, Jay is going to talk about the inventory database and inventory sales analysis and the exceptions report, and he gets a lot of tech support questions about that. So I am going to unmute everybody and see if anyone has any questions. I covered a lot of material. There's a lot here, but I kind of wanted to give you a feel for how I look at the report manager and move around. Oh, do we have any questions there? I thought I heard something in the background. Hello? Do I have? I do have people unmuted, right, Nick?
Yes, you do.
Hey, David, this is Carol.
Hi, Carol.
And I do have a question about printing to file. Can you print it to a PDF?
You can if you set up a printer that sends it to a PDF, and then you actually send it to a printer that creates the PDF file.
Okay, so like a bull zip.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
And that is in configuration, hardware, printers. I I've got some printers set up here to send like an invoice purchase order. I could create another one that would create a report PDF, or I could just use one of those.
Okay. Very good.
Any other questions? Hopefully I didn't bore everyone to death, but there's a lot of interesting information, a lot of good reports. Every customer is interested in how to run reports, so it's a good thing to know. If I
Ed, are you able to hear us there?
Yeah, I'm here, Nick.
Oh, okay, very good. Just want to make sure you're still here.
Good start.
oh, and where's
David?
where's my last slide? Okay, so it is same time next week, report filters with Mike Tabor. Was there a last question there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
You showed that one report where you filtered by register, and I think it was either Dave's report or Jim's report. Can you filter it by user so that user can run their report from any register?
You know, I'm not sure. That was I came in here, said add new setting, and called it Jim's. When I put in, if his clerk number is 14, let me go ahead and save this, and then I'll see that is just on this register when you do that by clerk. So you would have to do it on a particular, like the back register or whatever for him. I don't think you can make it a shared setting and for an individual clerk.
So this
but
is not really set up by individual. This is because, for example, let's say that Mary goes to register 14. That means she could run that report, right?
No, because you have to be logged in as clerk 14 to run that report.
Okay. So let me ask it a different way. Can clerk 14 run that report from any register?
He could run that report from any register, but what I'm not sure is if it will show up at any register, or you would have to set it up at register 1, register 3, register 5.
Oh, okay.
But only he would be able to run it, or if you have security level to run reports anyway, like I do here, I could run it because I have 0 security level and can run that report anyway.
Got it.
All right.